I still remember the morning I left. The air smelled like damp earth, the kind that clings to you after a night of quiet rain. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and orange. It was a beautiful morning, the kind that made leaving even harder. I stood at the edge of our small wooden porch, my worn-out sneakers sinking slightly into the old, creaking planks. My backpack, filled with nothing but a few changes of clothes, a notebook filled with scribbled lyrics, and my mother's homemade rice cakes, hung heavily from my shoulders. It wasn't much, but it was everything I had. My mother stood beside me, hands clasped together in front of her apron, the same faded blue one she always wore when she cooked. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her before. Or maybe I was just seeing her differently, for the first time as someone I was about to leave behind. She didn't cry. She never did. Not when my father left. Not when we had to sell most of our belongings just to get by. And not now, when her only son was leaving for the city with nothing but a dream and barely enough money for the train ride. "You'll eat properly, right?" she asked softly, smoothing out an invisible crease on my sleeve. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Of course. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "And you'll call me when you get there?" Another nod, another lie. We both knew that once I left, life would pull me further and further away. The cicadas hummed in the distance, their steady chorus filling the silence between us. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other, gripping the straps of my backpack a little tighter. "I should go," I said, though I didn't move. She exhaled, long and slow, as if letting go of something she had been holding onto for too long. "Then go," she said, her voice steady but laced with something heavy, something unspoken. "Go, and don't look back, Minje. But promise me one thing." I looked at her, waiting. "Don't forget why you left." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because at that moment, I didn't know what was more painful, the fear of failing or the fear of never seeing her again. The train station was a 20-minute walk from home, but that morning it felt like the longest walk of my life. Every step away from the house was a step towards something bigger, something unknown. The road stretched before me, cracked and uneven, much like the path I had chosen. I didn't turn back. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I kept walking, gripping my ticket like it was the only thing keeping me together. As the train pulled away, I pressed my forehead against the cold window and watched as my home faded into the distance. The rice fields, the small houses, the familiar hills, I watched them all disappear, swallowed by the horizon. And then, I was gone. I arrived in Seoul with nothing but my dreams and a worn-out backpack slung over my shoulders. The city was everything I had imagined, bright, loud, and alive with endless possibilities. But beneath the dazzling skyline, reality was harsher than I had ever expected. The first few days were spent roaming the streets, searching for opportunities. I knocked on doors of small music agencies, hopeful they would see the passion burning inside me. But one after another, the rejections piled up. "We're not looking for new talent. Your voice lacks uniqueness. Come back when you have more experience." The words cut deeper each time. Money ran out faster than I had planned. Cheap convenience store meals became my daily routine, and some nights, I went to sleep with an empty stomach. I found shelter in a cramped gosuwon, a tiny one-room apartment barely bigger than a closet. The walls were thin, and I could hear my neighbors crying, arguing, or practicing for their own dreams. It was a reminder that I wasn't the only one struggling here. I took on part-time jobs just to survive, washing dishes in a small restaurant, delivering newspapers at dawn, even handing out flyers in the busy streets of Myeongdong. My hands grew rough, my body exhausted, but I refused to give up. Every time I felt like breaking down, I reminded myself why I had come here. On some nights, I sat by the Han River, watching the city lights reflect on the water. I played my guitar softly, whispering the lyrics of the songs I wrote, hoping that one day, someone would hear them. Despite the countless rejections, the exhaustion, and the loneliness, I held on to my dream. Because if I let go, then everything I had sacrificed would have been for nothing. I used to believe that distance was measured in miles, but now I know it's measured in silence. The longer I stayed in Seoul, the quieter my connection to home became. Calls to my mother grew infrequent, first because I was busy, then because I had nothing good to tell her. The city had swallowed me whole. My days were spent running between part-time jobs that barely paid enough to keep me in my tiny damp apartment. At night, I wandered through the streets with my guitar, playing for strangers who rarely stopped to listen. I told myself this was just a struggle before success, but deep inside I felt like I was losing something: myself, my dreams, and worst of all, my mother. The last time I spoke to her, her voice was softer than I remembered. "You sound tired," she said, concern laced in every word. "I'm fine," I lied, "just busy." "Have you eaten?" I forced a laugh. "Of course, you know me." But that night, as I sat on the cold floor of my apartment, eating another meal of instant noodles, I wondered if she knew how far I had drifted from the boy who once sat at her kitchen table, dreaming of the stage. Opportunities came and went like passing trains. I auditioned for everything: small agencies, talent competitions, underground gigs. Each rejection chipped away at me, but I refused to let it break me. Until one day, a producer finally showed interest. He listened to my song, nodded along, and then asked, "Can you change your style? Something more mainstream?" I hesitated. My music was the one thing that still felt like mine, but I was desperate. "Yes," I answered, swallowing the last bit of my pride. "I can." Weeks turned into months, and I found myself molding into something unrecognizable. I sang what they told me to sing, wore what they told me to wear, smiled when they told me to smile. And yet, every time I looked in the mirror, I felt like a stranger staring back at me. One evening, exhausted and frustrated, I picked up my phone to call home. But when my thumb hovered over my mother's number, I froze. What would I even say? That her son, who once dreamt of making music that mattered, was now just another faceless performer in the city, that I wasn't even sure if I wanted this anymore. I locked my phone and set it aside. Maybe tomorrow, I told myself. Maybe tomorrow I'll call. But tomorrow never came. And with every passing day, I drifted further away. The world of Seoul moved fast, so fast that I barely had time to think, barely had time to breathe. The city never slept, and neither did I. Between part-time jobs, late-night practice sessions, and chasing every audition I could find, my days blurred into a relentless cycle of exhaustion and hope. I told myself it was worth it, that it would all pay off one day. I kept my phone close but rarely touched it. Every now and then I'd see her name light up the screen. The notifications stacked up, her messages growing more frequent. "Are you eating well? How is Seoul? When will you visit home?" Each one a small weight on my chest, pressing harder with every unread message. I'd draft replies in my head. "Soon, I'm just busy, I'll call later," but later never came. And eventually, the messages slowed, then stopped. Back home, she sat in our quiet house, her hands resting on the old wooden table where we used to eat together. The phone lay beside her, untouched, as she stared at the wall, waiting for a call that never came. The clock on the wall ticked, an unbearable reminder of time slipping away. Meanwhile, I raced against it. I stood outside another studio, gripping my guitar case tightly. The last audition hadn't gone well, and the rejection still echoed in my ears. But there was no time to dwell on failure. I had to move forward, always forward. The nights felt colder, lonelier. I'd sit by the Han River, strumming my guitar for strangers, letting the music drown out the thoughts I refused to face. I convinced myself it was fine. That one day, when I made it, I'd return home with something to show for the years apart, that she'd be proud of me. But time never waits. I never realized how much time had slipped away until it was too late. The call came on a cold morning. My phone buzzed incessantly on my bedside table, but I barely looked at it. I had gotten used to ignoring calls, but something about the silence that followed made me pick it up. "Min-jae, your mother, she's gone." The words didn't register at first. I sat there, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. My breath hitched. A numbness spread through my body. I had promised, I had sworn I would go back when I made it, when I was successful, but time never waits. I don't remember getting on the train. I don't remember how I made it home. The next thing I knew, I was standing at our doorstep. The wooden door creaked open. Everything was the same. Her chair at the table, the old clock ticking on the wall, the faint smell of the herbal tea she always drank. But she wasn't there. I fell to my knees. A choked sob escaped my throat, then another, and another, until my entire body trembled and I could no longer stop myself. I cried until there was nothing left inside me. The next morning, while going through her things, I found it. An old envelope with my name scrawled in her handwriting. My fingers trembled as I opened it. The paper inside was worn and soft from being read too many times. My dear son, I don't know when you'll read this, but if you are, it means I'm no longer by your side. I hope you're eating well. I hope you're sleeping enough. I know how hard you work, and I know you are chasing your dreams. I am so proud of you. I have always been proud of you. Don't regret. Don't cry for me. Leave. Make music. Be happy. You will always be my son, no matter how far away you go. With love, Mom. My hands shook as I pressed the letter against my chest. I had lost the time I thought I had, but I wouldn't lose the chance to make it mean something. I returned to Seoul with renewed purpose. I poured my soul into my music. My pain, my regrets, my mother's love, all of it bled into my songs. The small gigs turned into larger performances.
작은 피아노 앞에서 In front of that small piano My fingers shaking I was just a kid 선생님 You smiled and said to me Music lives inside your heart Even when I hit the wrong keys 눈물이 났었죠 Tears will fall down But you never gave up on
My name started appearing in magazines, my songs played on the radio, my face on billboards. Fame arrived swiftly, but it meant nothing without her. But I knew, somewhere, somehow, she was listening. I was now successful, but my mother, my only family in the entire world, was no more. Occasionally, I would stand by the window, reminiscing about all the times I had spent with her in the village and the struggles she went through raising me. I forced myself to hold back my tears, but sometimes I couldn't help it as they flowed freely down my face. The sky was gray when I visited her grave. I bent down, brushing away the fallen leaves. Her name was etched in stone, simple yet eternal. Mom, my voice cracked. I did it. I placed my guitar down and strummed the softest melody, a song I had written just for her. My fingers moved instinctively, the tune laced with every memory, every unspoken word, every I love you I never got to say. The wind carried the notes away, and for a moment, I swore I could hear her voice in the rustling leaves. A tear slipped down my cheek, but this time, I smiled. 안녕, 엄마.
당신이 있었기에 Because you were